We got to talk some Stanley Cup playoffs here. And joining us right now to do that, the awesome host of Turner Sports NHL coverage. It's been amazing, a joy watching him all postseason long. Paul Bissonnette's absolutely hilarious. He's great. Anson Carter's awesome. I love Henrik Lundqvist forever because I'm a Ranger fan. Also, he's outrageously handsome. Rick Tocchet and others. It's been amazing. Wade Gretzky doing cut-ins as well. It's really fantastic. Liam McHugh joins us now to break it all down on Twitter at Liam_McHugh. Liam, thanks for joining the show. Nick Costos, Ken Barkley, you better, you bet. How's it going, my man?
It's going great. Thanks for having me on. Best time of the year.
Liam, just kind of like a big picture question to start. I know obviously we started the playoffs and Boston and Colorado were kind of the two favorites in the betting market. They were the two favorites to win the Stanley Cup. Obviously they were both eliminated in the first round. And since then, it kind of seems like every single day based on the results, there's kind of a new team that's the favorite or a new team that's close to the favorite. Like it's Carolina right now, probably just because they're the closest to advancing to the next round, and Edmonton and Florida are behind them. It's kind of just, it's been like just shuffling a deck of cards basically for who the favorite is. Do you feel confident in saying right now that there's a team you think is like the best team remaining and more likely than the others to win the Stanley Cup?
No, frankly. I mean, I would
and that's
say
okay.
that,
right.
Yeah, I mean, this is the way it goes right now. I mean, we're at that point where we've had some upsets, and I don't know that I choose to jump on a bandwagon with, like, Florida at this point. I know they're up big on Toronto and that they're right on the verge of potentially moving through, and Carolina's in the same situation with Jersey. But I look at both those teams as a reason Florida was the last team into the playoffs. I mean, they do have some flaws. They are not the most defensive-minded team. And I could see Toronto making this interesting. I don't think that Toronto comes back to win it. And Carolina, I look at it as a team that it's a great story because three of their biggest, best offensive weapons have been out, and they've still done this, which, again, is a great story, but doesn't mean that it's a great enough team to go on and win the whole thing. To me, it's funny, to me, the best team, the team that should right now, on paper, be the favorite is the Dallas Stars, because they've had some injuries, but they've dealt with them. They've gotten the guys back. They have what I believe is the best goalie left in this tournament in Jake Ottinger, and that's the biggest factor when you look at the Stanley Cup playoffs. And they're deep. They win faceoffs. They do everything well, right? We were talking about them as the classic, like, good-looking, great personality, kind of annoying that they're good at everything. That's the Dallas Stars. They are that team. But they're locked in a 2-2 battle with the Seattle team that just won't go away. But to me, like, they should be that team, but they just haven't taken that step yet.
Yeah, and I'm not convinced, Liam, that Dallas is going to take that step, because it just, this series has been so wonky, and Seattle's blowout of Dallas in game number 3, and I understand Dallas came back and had a great performance in game number 4. I get that Dallas should be that team. They're priced tonight like they're going to be that team. They're minus 200 favorite, a big favorite tonight against Seattle. I candidly think they're too big of a favorite, and in the power hour coming up, I'm going to bet Seattle in tonight's game to win here. It sounds, Liam, like you think Dallas is going to win tonight's game, maybe represent the Western Conference in the Stanley Cup final when it's all said and done. What's your level of confidence that the Stars and Jake Ottinger and company get it done tonight, game 5 against Seattle, a game that you can watch coming up tonight on TNT?
I have a pretty, listen, again, I feel like Seattle is this volatile mixture of players on the team where, like, they come at you in waves and it's nonstop speed, and you really can't tell one line from the other, which is sort of good and bad because it means they don't, like, have superstar power, but it means also that their fourth line is just as good as their first. So they're a tough team to read in that regard. But I still have a pretty good level of confidence because I think, like, we haven't really seen Jake Ottinger be the Jake Ottinger we saw. And we only saw it for a brief glimpse last year in the playoffs because he was in the first round against Calgary and they got eliminated. But he was so brilliant during that first round that, I mean, I was talking about, so were some other people are like, my God, like, we may not see another performance like this in the rest of the playoffs. Like, he was that good, it was that memorable, that he should be considered one of the best players in this tournament, even though they were eliminated. I think he's capable of that. And I think if he starts playing to that level, they can't be beaten by Seattle. I also look at it as Miro Heiskanen, who's their top D-man. He got hurt in that blowout loss a couple games ago, came back wearing a bubble over his face. And listen, those things are not – he's got a bunch of stitches on his cheek. He's got the bubble on. He's having trouble breathing. And he goes out there and plays like 5 more minutes than anyone else out there. Doesn't seem winded. Seems like he's 100% ready to go. I think – I don't know. To me, it just feels like this is the time for Dallas to step on the gas, to show what they're about, to show that they're deeper, to show that they're a better team, and that, they do have higher end stars. So I really believe that this is the time that they should do that. So yeah, my confidence level is, I don't know, fairly high. Does that help your people at home? Probably not, but it's fairly high.
Liam, I know you mentioned you kind of think this is the Stars' time. Let's play it out and let's advance them past Seattle just for the purposes of this exercise. Kind of seems like we might be waiting on some news in the other Western Conference series between Edmonton and Vegas. Possible suspension to Alex Pietrangelo, the defenseman for Vegas, one of their most impactful players. Which could obviously talk about, like, does that matter to bettors? Like your opinion on Dallas. This definitely matters to bettors whether people are going to play in this game coming up. So Friday night, late night. The next game in the series, Edmonton tied it at 2. Edmonton, a small road favorite. What do you think of, like, the potential discipline angle in that series? And who do you have coming out of that one? Edmonton and Vegas. They play Friday night at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, the news that we're waiting on is massive. We have a little bit of news that Darnell Nurse is suspended. So he's going to be out. So obviously Edmonton down one of their key defensemen. Alex Pietrangelo is a vital part of what Vegas wants to do. I mean, he was a captain of the St. Louis Blues when they won the Stanley Cup, so he provides the leadership, he provides stability. He's a great D-man, but he also drives offense for that team as well, and that's a team that relies on sort of defense and forwards to provide their offense. It wasn't a big scoring team individually. If you look throughout the year, they didn't really have someone over 66 points. I don't think they had a 30-goal scorer. I mean, and you're talking about a league where, guys are getting, regularly over 100 points, and we had several, at this point, 60-goal scorers. So it's a weird place to be living if you're Vegas, where you're not, you're generating offense collectively. That news is going to be huge. It's got to be the hardest series to read because it just feels like it's, sort of similar to the Stars, where it's blowout after blowout after blowout, and no one can sustain momentum from one game to the next. My thought, though, if Pietrangelo's out, that's a trade, Nurse for Pietrangelo, that the Oilers will take. They'd be happy with it. They'd feel good about the fact that this guy's out for us, Pietrangelo's out for them, and they should feel good, and the Oilers should go on. And honestly, I think given what the Oilers can do on offense, and also what we saw in terms of injuries, Adin Hill was in goal for Vegas. I thought he looked shaky. I don't think Adin Hill is a legitimate NHL starter in this league. I think he's a good backup, and a good backup against the Oilers offense is a recipe for disaster.
Just hearing the Pietrangelo Nurse thing, I'm having flashbacks to JoJo English and Derek Harper in the 90s with the Bulls and the Knicks when JoJo English got Derek Harper suspended for a game. So we'll see what happens with Pietrangelo. I just had to throw that back to my Knicks because they're in the playoffs right now also. You better you bet here with Nick and Ken on a Thursday. We are talking the Stanley Cup playoffs with the great Liam McHugh, the host of Turner's NHL coverage. Liam is on Twitter at Liam_McHugh. Turner has a doubleheader coming up tonight, both games on TNT. The Hurricanes hosting the Devils and the Stars hosting the Kraken. Liam, we've touched on both Western Conference series. Let's talk about the Eastern Conference games. And tonight on TNT again, Carolina hosting New Jersey. Canes up 3-1 in the series. I kind of thought Jersey was going to win game 4 like they did again in the Rangers series. That did not happen. And now Carolina can close it out at home. They're minus 135, so a short home favorite. Devils plus 115 total in the game, sitting at 6. What do you think we see tonight, game 5 with the Canes and the Devils?
I think Carolina closes this out. I really do. And if you look at the numbers, I know that road teams have dominated this postseason. It's been really just out of whack, and it's been trending in that direction the last few years to where it's been closer to even, but road teams have really been dominant. Carolina's at home. Carolina is the one team that you can rely on at home. 4-1 at home during this postseason, 11-2 at home over the last 2 postseasons. That place gets loud. It's a fortress for them. They feed off that energy, and that's a team that needs to feed off energy because, as I mentioned, they're down some skill guys, but they play hard every shift. They are in your face. They don't let you breathe. They smother you. And I think on the other side, what you have is a lot of young Devils players who, while they did very well to come back against the Rangers after dropping the first 2 and winning that series, I think this is the step in their trajectory and in their story where they lose in the second round and they learn a lesson about the playoffs and they come back and they're a better team next year, because I think the Devils are a team that are going to be in the playoffs now year in, year out for a bunch of years to come. But this is a Carolina team that's built for now. They're ready. I like their goaltending with Anderson, and there's question in goal for the Devils, although I'm fairly confident. I think it's going to be Akira Schmid. The kid's going to be back in the net for Jersey. But right now, I just think Carolina at home and a team that feels that this is their window to get to a Stanley Cup final, which they haven't done here the last few years, I think this is their time to end it.
Yeah, it does feel like kind of a short price for Carolina at home in a closeout game in a series that they've won a bunch of games by a lot of goals, about minus 135 right now to win that game. That's the early game coming up tonight. Liam, the other series in the East, we almost had a series end. All the NBA series are going to Game 6. Obviously, seems like we might have a bunch of Game 7s. We almost had a sweep, and it was probably maybe not the least likely one, but one that nobody really expected, especially in terms of who was going to sweep who. Toronto staves off elimination. They beat Florida last night. They trail in the series 3-1. They're a big favorite coming up. This is tomorrow early, 7 o'clock Eastern time in Game 5 against Florida. Do you give the Maple Leafs any chance? Did you see anything that they did in Game 4 that makes you think they can make this a much longer series?
I did. I mean, I think I saw a little bit of desperation, and I saw some hunger, and I saw guys winning battles for pucks, which you saw occasionally from this team. You saw like for a period or, half of a period, but then they couldn't sustain it. There's too much skill. There's too much speed on that team. They should be able to beat these teams. And, essentially this is a club that for 19 years, suffered the humiliation of not being able to get out of the first round. Then they finally get through it, and they're about to suffer the humiliation of being swept by the last team in which case all the worries, all the fears that people have at that organization that, hey, the coach will get fired, the GM will get fired, maybe the president, they're going to clean house, who knows about the future with Austin Matthews, it all resurfaced despite the fact that they had made it to the second round, not to mention they had a fan base that was out there in the streets chanting, "We want Florida," as opposed to "We want Boston." That didn't work out too well either. I think there's desperation. I wanted to see it. I saw it. My hope is that they can carry it over to home ice. The problem is, on home ice for Toronto, it's worse. I truly believe this, because if they let up a goal, the crowd turns. The crowd gets quiet, and everybody tightens up. It really does. We've seen it with this team before. They're the one team that I always say, like, oh, God, they should play to avoid home ice advantage in every series, because it's just going to wind up hurting them. They should try to get as many road games as possible. I think if they get an early lead, they can force another game. I really do believe that. On paper, they're the better team. And honestly, I thought Matthew Tkachuk had been so brilliant, early on in this playoffs. He's kind of gotten a little quiet. The goaltending advantage, unfortunately for them, is definitely in Florida's corner. But I do see this Maple Leafs team being able to rally. If you get an early goal, they'll take one more and they can push it to another game.
Liam, we got about 30 seconds to go here. Would love your thoughts on your old coworker from your NBC days, Keith Jones, being named the president of hockey operations for the Philadelphia Flyers as the Flyers try to get out of this malaise that they've been in. Danny Briere, interim title taken off. Now the GM of the Philadelphia Flyers. Your guy Jonesy now running the Philadelphia Flyers. How do you think that's going to go here in about 30 seconds?
Just the fact that there can be a business card that says President Jonesy on it is about the greatest thing I've ever heard. He is a beauty of an individual. He owns like 2 suits. He basically wears the same one every single night, so the Flyers are going to have to buy him a new one. But he is an all-time great guy, a brilliant, brilliant hockey mind, one of the smartest guys in the room, but he doesn't have to tell you he's the smartest guy in the room at all times. He's honestly the best teammate I've ever worked with. Helped me so much with my career. And he loves that team and that city. So I really think they got a great thing going with Jonesy. I'm really, really happy for him, and it's bittersweet. I mean, I've worked with him for 13 years, so I'll miss it. But congrats to him and congrats to Philly.
Amazing. Liam, we appreciate it, man. Check it out. Check Liam out and the whole crew out coming up tonight on TNT, the doubleheader with the Kraken and the Stars, the Devils and the Canes. My friend, have a great broadcast, and we'll talk to you soon here on You Better You Bet.